All right, let's get right into it. We're going to explore how two very simple words, backed by some serious science, can completely change the way you connect with people. And just to be clear, this isn't about cheap tricks or lines. This is about the real psychological mechanics of what makes a person, well, magnetic. So, let's start with a really interesting behavioral experiment. Picture two guys, right? Same looks, same clothes, same place. One of them, totally ignored. The other, he had women leaning in, laughing, wanting to hear more. And the only, and I mean only, difference was two specific words he used right at the start of the conversation. This isn't about memorizing some pickup artist script. This is so much deeper. It's about understanding the psychology of human connection. And by the time we're done here, you're going to know exactly what those words are and, more importantly, the scientific reason they're so incredibly powerful.
And this just perfectly nails the core problem. There's this story about a guy named Marcus who was doing everything he thought was right, asking questions, being nice, but he just wasn't connecting. This one piece of feedback absolutely cracked the whole thing open for him. He realized he wasn't really having a conversation, he was just performing one.
Okay, so before I just give you the words, we have to understand the science behind them, because the why is what makes the what actually work. Real, lasting attraction isn't just visual. It comes from how you make someone feel when they're around you. So this brings us to something called mirror neurons. The easiest way to think of these is like your brain's emotional Wi-Fi. Your internal state, whether you're feeling anxious or calm, is being subconsciously broadcast to the person you're talking to. Their nervous system literally starts to mirror yours. It's wild. And here's the direct impact of that. If you go into a conversation feeling all anxious and unsure, they're going to feel on edge and they won't even know why. But if you're grounded, if you're genuinely curious, their mirror neurons pick that up and they start to feel calm and seen. And let me tell you, that feeling is absolutely magnetic. This really gets to a fundamental human need. The famous psychologist Carl Rogers basically built his entire career on this idea. We all have this deep, primal desire to be truly seen and understood for who we are, not judged or sized up. He called this feeling empathic resonance. So, with all that science in our back pocket, let's get to the solution. Let's look at how all of this gets distilled down into two simple but incredibly powerful words that can give someone that exact feeling of being understood. All right, so after all that buildup, what's the key? What are the two words that can shift you from being a conversational interviewer into someone who genuinely connects?
You seem. That's it. And I know it looks simple on the screen, but the power isn't in the words themselves. It's in the psychological cascade they trigger in the other person's brain. It's about what these words do.
And this all happens almost instantly. First, you're signaling that you're actually paying attention to them, which, let's be honest, is incredibly rare. Second, it's not a demand or a label. It's a soft, gentle invitation for them to open up. And third, you're tapping into a basic neurological reward system. Our brains are literally wired with pleasure centers that light up when we get to share who we are. Of course, knowing the words is one thing. Using them effectively, that's the real art. This is where we go from theory to practice and figure out how to apply this without sounding like a robot or, just plain insincere. So think of it like a simple formula. You seem is just the opener. The magic ingredient, the part that makes it all work, is what you add next. A specific, curious observation about their energy, their character, their unique vibe. Not something generic. And here is a perfect example of this in action. You seem really pretty is fine. It's a surface-level compliment she's probably heard 1,000 times. But you seem like someone who turns disasters into adventures? Wow. That's a perceptive observation. You're not just telling her what she is, you're telling her you see who she is. Big difference. All right, now we need to cover the common mistakes because these can make this powerful technique just fall completely flat. If you get this wrong, you risk sounding inauthentic, which is the exact opposite of what we're going for here. Okay, please avoid these 3 traps. First, if it sounds like a rehearsed line, you've already lost. It has to come from a place of genuine curiosity. Second, stay away from physical looks entirely. This is about seeing their character. And finally, and this is probably the most important rule of all, you have to listen deeply to their response. The point isn't to say a cool line, it's to open a real conversation. Your job really begins after you say the words. You know, this whole concept goes way beyond just a simple technique. In clinical psychology, there's a term for this: perceptive attunement. It's the ability to notice and accurately reflect someone's inner world back to them. It's a skill that therapists spend years developing, but it's something you can start practicing today.
And this brings us to the #1 biological reason this works so well: oxytocin. When you give someone the gift of your focused attention and you accurately reflect their inner world, their brain can release this incredibly powerful hormone. It's often called the bonding hormone because it creates feelings of trust and connection. You are literally helping to create the biological conditions for attachment.
And really, this skill isn't just for romance. Mastering this deepens your friendships, it makes you better at your job, it enriches your entire experience of connecting with other human beings. It's a total game changer. So ultimately, you seem is just the key that unlocks the door. The real power here is adopting the philosophy behind it, making the choice to be genuinely curious about people, to actually pay attention, to notice the little things others miss, and to have the courage to reflect what you see back to them.
So that's the real takeaway here. Most people are just walking through the world waiting, hoping for someone to truly see them. The person who develops the skill to do the seeing, to make others feel understood and valued, that person becomes unforgettable.